So, not everyone's obviously gone to this Agile methodology. Does it work in every environment? Should it be? I mean, I guess you're all pro, obviously, but are there environments where,
Yes.
ish anyway, are there environments where this just doesn't work and never will?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't. It's iterative development.
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole point. Iterative development is expensive. Just if you look at it just in purely theoretical terms, having to build incrementally is more expensive than actually going through each of the activities one at a time and being sure that, okay, we've got a design, we've got code, you know, your waterfall, your V model. They're cheaper, but they're only cheaper if you don't have to go back and change lots of things. If you're in a situation where everyone is really sure what they're building, so you're in a situation where it's going to be really unlikely that there are going to be large or medium-sized changes to the requirements, then actually going Agile isn't of value because it will just cost you more.
Okay.
And it might keep your developers happier because they can put Agile on their CV, but actually your project cost is going to be higher. And if you're building something like a flight control system for an aircraft, there's no reason for not going Agile because of the safety criticality, because you can build whatever you ever controls and audits into the Agile process you use. But on the other hand, with a flight control system for an aircraft, the requirements are so well understood already. I mean, typically by the time the software is being written, the hardware's already designed, probably prototyped, and it's not going to change. Therefore, there's no need to go Agile. You get the benefit of Agile when you're in a marketplace that's changing and you need to respond to that change.
So the danger for organisations is if they're in a, to sum up then, if they're in a changing marketplace, if they don't go Agile, they're actually going to suffer in comparison to their competitors.
I mean, in the portfolio of Agile, we have a member Crystal family of methodologies. Crystal methodologies actually start from the Crystal Orange right up to Crystal Red, and the invention of this thing was primarily to show that from the research and development end of our work, where failure is in itself a successful result, right up to where life and limb are at risk. When we move in that spectrum, the further up we get to the criticality, as you said, then the bureaucracy has to be heavier, even acknowledged by the Agile family of methodologies that sometimes we have to make our bureaucracy tighter due to the criticality that it has. We have to leave slack in the system rather than this total optimization where, for example, for a web technology and web marketing system, the delivery, the fastest delivery, though it may not be 100% perfect, is acceptable because there are other things that we are pitching for, the market, the client, market share and the traction, where in fly-by-wire we couldn't take those risks, and bureaucracy may have to be increased to make sure that there is absolutely no chance of. And whether Agile can answer that or not, that I think is just needs to be more data on that one, which we don't have right now.
Yeah. There are also, sorry. No, I was just going to sort of say that bringing it to a sort of project level, do we use Agile techniques, yes or no? If you understand the problem, if you understand the technology domain, and you have all of the requisite people and skills to solve the problem, go ahead. I think you get a quicker, higher quality resolution in doing that. If the problem is less well understood, or you are less familiar with that problem, it's not build a website, it's build control software for traffic lights, to use that example, and you're not familiar with the domain of the technology that you need to use, then no, perhaps it's not a good idea to try and embark on Agile techniques, because in that example, I don't think you can accurately predict the effort, and that's you know, that's very important to be able to accurately predict and understand, you know, what can fit inside an iteration from build to sort of test deployment.
It is the gain or the loss that dictates what we use. If the gain and the profit and loss, it's very difficult to actually put human life, for example, in that equation. But what is it that we can lose? What's the risk? If it is criticality is, for example, loss of life, then one has to think 3-4 times. If the loss is purely financial or it's research, then the choice might be ever so slightly easier. So this is that is at the point that one has to make a decision. However, Agile has proved exactly as you said, at the project level, with the restrictions around it sometimes, it has proved to work more frequently than before. The data is coming out. As I said, I haven't seen version 1's questionnaire, but we have seen the end result of what version 1 is asking, and other people are starting to use more rigorous format of surveying, and they are also coming back with results that at the project level it's working. Whether it can be expanded or not, one has to start thinking.
I think you have to be careful though. I mean, version 1 obviously make their money from Agile.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And therefore...
I just quite that sort of set us on our way, really.
No, but that is a really well respected within the Agile industry survey. So, you know, it's coming out every year and you can see the trends. But I think you have to be careful. Their community are Agile. They're pro-Agile. So therefore you're going to get the best responses. And I think also if you look at any surveys that look at failures, now personally I'm pro-Agile. I think Agile probably does succeed more often than traditional approaches, but that's probably because a lot of the time Agile is being used on small, relatively less complex systems. Software engineers have known for 30 odd years that small, less complex systems aren't actually that difficult to build. We can do that. It's building the large complex systems that we fail on, that when we lose $750 million, etc. Now, whether or not Agile works for those, I think the jury's still out on that, because we don't have that much data and we don't have that many large Agile projects. I mean, a large Agile project, from my experience, is one perhaps with 10 parallel teams. So that's probably 100 people maximum. And if you go into a 100 people project and they're doing Agile, they think that's big.
Yes.
Whereas if you go into other parts of software engineering industry, you'll find large projects are where there's far more people.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, that is one of the criticisms of Agile development, isn't it? The ability to scale things up. There's quite an interesting a lecture on the BCS website at the moment about scaling Scrum, and that it can be done. It's an hour and 50 minutes, so I don't expect you to have seen it, but it's worth checking out. Perhaps I could just quote this little comment that someone put on one of our BCS blog posts about Agile a couple of weeks ago. Developers start building before they even understand what it is they are delivering. That's another criticism, but that just sounds like bad business practice, isn't it? Anyone got a comment about that?
In most of our experience or our advice is that actually quite a lot happens before when we get to do it, and that should not be taken away. And especially APMG, for example, currently they have started producing for the management, that a lot happens before. And I think it's the inexperience of folks who want to start Agile and say, let's just pack it and see what happens. Most folks who've actually thought about it, they start with a pre-work.
Yes.
Well, we've learnt some of that the hard way very recently. So in building a sort of relatively large sometimes complex web application, as we are at the moment, we knew and we understood that we couldn't set the developers off on task, seemingly not knowing what on earth they're going to build. So, we invested the time up front to think about high-level requirements and the corresponding system architecture that we would need as a base point to then put future features and iterations on top of. Now, we still use the sort of Scrum principles, if you like, of two-week iterations to do our architecture. Yeah. So total of a month. Was that enough? In hindsight, no. We needed to do more because a few sprints in, when we were adding more requirements, more features, we actually, we stopped for a couple of weeks to say, hang on a minute, we've got a fairly large, for us at this stage, refactor to do. In our system architecture. So that's hindsight. Sort of taking that forward, will we spend slightly more time the next time around in using requirements versus the architecture that we need, and then not running off and doing sort of sprint one of real development? Yeah, I think we would more tentatively wait to start the first real development add feature sprint after the system architecture. But it's so we're new to this. The team that I work with are sort of approaching, I guess, 18 months into a Scrum adoption, and I, for one, was of the belief that no, we'll get the architecture as we go along. And quite rightly, members of my team said no, because we really have to have the building blocks. I think, yep, you're right. We can't go into it with that much debt. So absolutely, I think you're right. There is a foundation that you have to do by perhaps more traditional methods to then enable you to run with a certain pace.
And there were folks that were saying this for at the very least 7-8 years. Unfortunately, the voice was drowned in the bigger noise that was going on. AUP and OUP have been for a long time, Agile Unified Process and Open Unified Process, have for a long time been saying that in the beginning of a project, you will have a large proportion of work done in terms of your architecture analysis, and diminishing, but never diminishing to a point of insignificance. It carries on, but diminishes across the project. And that is the approach that most folks have found more successful, that we engaged more with the folks, but throughout the project, and it could even be more than before, because in total some of it could be more engagement than we used to have before. But it's the continuity of that engagement.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to perhaps just slightly non-sequitur possibly. One of the things that BCS have been promoting recently is, and talking a lot about, is innovation, entrepreneurship, that kind of thing. Is there any advantage in Agile approaches in the innovative space? Does that help with people doing things a little bit differently and mindsets and so on and so forth?
Well, Agile's built on frequent cycles, and Agile accepts the fact that people are going to make mistakes. Innovation is built on mistakes. I mean, if you look at I don't know, Edison light bulb, yeah, I think it was about 1,500 attempts. So he failed 1,500 times, and the 1,501st time, we got a light bulb.
Yes.
Well, not now, because the year have stopped us, but 1,500 failures, one success.
Yes.
That's innovation. So Agile works very closely with those principles of quick cycle times, quick feedback, accepting that you're going to fail sometimes, but because it's quick cycle times, as long as you learn that you failed, you can go back and fix it. So I think Agile and innovation go hand in hand, but innovation and standards go hand in hand, and I'm not sure if standards and Agile quite go hand in hand. So
I'll throw in there that I think sometimes using sort of methodology like Scrum, there can be a greater focus on speed rather than the innovation of the solution, because if it is an understood technology domain, you might go ahead and implement the same old thing that you've always done, with in the interest of speed and relative quality, the quality that you understand that has worked previously for you. So maybe it falters a little there in innovating. That might be how we adopt ourselves. That we're always sort of
I think
chasing and looking at speed. I do agree absolutely with what you said about it. I think innovation should be inherent in the iteration. But I would say sometimes I think can sort of fall a little bit too foul of chasing the speed, the quality, the kind of secondary to that,
things, yes.
and perhaps sometimes losing out on the opportunity to innovate further.
But if I'm the business and you're delivering me stuff fast that does what I want it to do, I don't want you to innovate.
No, you're perfectly happy with that.
If innovation means doing weird, unusual things, then I'm not sure if I'm paying you to do that.
However, if it's innovation that means a better customer experience, better engagement of partners, then it's probably worth doing. Yeah.
I see the part that Agile will help innovation is the quickest response in terms of feedback, where in innovation, as you said 1,500 times, first time that it fails, there is an inspect and adapt process. That why did it fail, how do I correct it, and then study it and then reply it again. And that, I think, that feedback is the part of the Agile process that would probably help innovation most than anything else, because we simply want to see, have I innovated something? Because it's something that is not necessarily in the format available for everyone to actually try, or there is no data for that one. Therefore, we need to quickly produce feedback forms on that one, or data for one to inspect and take it forward. And I think that, as well as what you've been saying, is the only part. But I would say Agile is definitely suitable for innovative work.
But what we'd like to do is thank Siamak, Stuart and Dale very much for speaking to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.